Hi everybody, it's Think Differently Thursday. Here we are again. I'm Helen, part of the Forge Church, and today this is a bit of a first, in a way that it's a bit of a second, because it was a year ago. Dave, you'll remember this. It was a year ago that as church and as country, we just all locked down, and we as a church thought it would be good to get some midweek content out there. So we started doing things, and I think in my first week of doing something like this, I recorded something in school because I was teaching key workers kids. I think the second week I talked to Thomas Burgess because he was a student. I thought it'd be interesting to see what he was up to. And in the third week, Dave, I talked to you, and I think actually we've hit the year round. I think it was a year ago yesterday that we spoke.
It's our anniversary.
Yes, happy anniversary. You having a good day?
Right.
Anyway, I haven't really, for people that don't know, this is Dave. Hi Dave, great to chat to you. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yep. So I'm MD of a company called Mosaic Spa and Health Clubs, and we operate health clubs and day spas all around the country. And we have a couple of our own standalone clubs as well that we own and operate ourselves. One of those is in Hereford, big health club and a big day spa called Homer Park. And the other one is in Shrewsbury, cleverly named the Shrewsbury Club, and that has tennis courts and a health club and a spa, and it's actually where I'm sat right now. I
was going to say, that's where you are, isn't it?
So, yeah, I am actually in Shrewsbury, but normally I'm at home in Suffolk, and part of the Forge, and so great to be feeling like I'm doing something Forge focused for a change, because I haven't done that for a while.
Fabulous. And it is particularly brilliant to be talking to you this week because, of course, the leisure industry has all opened up again this week, and we'll come on to that in a minute. I know that's a real cause for celebration, but it was this time last year that, in a sense, your whole world was kind of catapulted into turmoil that was unprecedented. We kept using that word, didn't we? This is unprecedented, because the leisure industry...
There was unprecedented use of the word unprecedented, wasn't there?
There was. In fact, that's a bit nostalgic, just using the word again then. But the leisure industry shut down, didn't it? So it has been a year and a half for you, hasn't it? It's been difficult. I mean, I know that I listened back actually to our chat from this time last year, and I think at that point you were kind of hoping that spas were going to be opening up again in the next month or so, but of course we know that as the summer went on, and some hospitality areas did open up, but spas didn't open up again, did they? That wasn't something that you experienced. So
no,
you
we were shocked.
Yeah, I think this time last year, your big kind of thing was like, I've got to pay 400 people. We've got no money coming in, and yet we have got to find this money. I mean, it's a big question about, like, how did you cope? How did you actually cope with what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you'd have told me in that phone call that what's going to happen is you're going to be shut for 8 out of the next 12 months, we'd probably seen a grown man cry, actually. But I think you would have, it would have felt like that was an impossible task. I mean, clearly, what's happened is that there have been some support put in place by government, which has helped a bit. I think I've used this analogy before, but it was been a bit like given a plastic mat to survive a tsunami. But it was, there was some help, and it's just been a case of trying to navigate something that obviously no one has been through before. So it has been difficult, and I can't pretend that we kind of got through the first one okay. We planned that one as best as we could, and I think it wasn't that long after our call that I realized that we weren't going to be opening anytime soon, and we had to put in place some practices to just really ensure that we survived. And then I think the toughest one has been the last one, because it felt in December we'd come out of our second lockdown, we'd got a vaccine, And so, yeah, for me, there was no sense that we would keep going back into another 3.5 months of having zero income. And actually we've had higher costs because the furlough has not been so generous, and a number of things. So it's been an interesting year, and we've managed to get through it. But clearly, we're not. There are plenty of other businesses in my industry that have not survived. So I'm just grateful that we're still here. We're not out of the woods yet. We've still got a long way to go, and we're in a far worse state as a business than we were this time last year. But no surprise, because for 8 months, we've had zero income. But it's one of those things. I mean, it just you have to deal with what you have to deal with, and
sometimes I think you said it a minute ago, that almost not knowing is possibly sometimes a better thing. If you had been told this time last year what the year was going to be, maybe that's insurmountable, but maybe there is something about not knowing, and so you just keep working towards the next bit and the next bit and the next bit.
Yeah, I think it's been a case of focusing on the key things. So we focused early on cash preservation. So we knew that that's what we have to do, is make sure that we preserve our cash. And then the second thing was basically trying to support the staff, because for them that was quite a difficult thing to be furloughed. And okay, they get there. I think there was an initial thing of, fantastic, we're going to do 80% of our pay and we're going to sit around and do nothing, which for a couple of weeks was nice. And then I think once the lockdown really hit, and they found that quite difficult. And they're not, they all could see, well, how on earth is the business going to survive? Am I going to have a job at the end of this?
And that
so we
must
had to
have been so stressful for you, because you're dealing with real people, aren't you? You're dealing with people that have got their own financial commitments, they've got families and mortgages, and that must have been really stressful for you, because at times you were making decisions that were affecting other people's lives, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We were trying to keep it as light and as fun. So we've got an app which we have, which every employee has. Yeah, as you do.
There's always an app for that.
So we have an app, but that meant, so we did a series of staff challenges, and we did the lockdown Olympics in the first lockdown. So there was a whole series of games and activities and things they had to do and share. So we tried to continue the team spirit aspects of it. So we lockdown Olympics came out twice a week and gave them things to do, and those that had youngsters could get their kids involved as well. And that created the ongoing sort of banter. And we had each different, we've got 20 odd clubs, so they each competed against each other.
Really?
And so we did some stuff around that to try and make it fun. And
so that's not so different in a sense to so you in your position in your company, us as church at this point last year, thinking, okay, we've got to do some things differently here. We've got to make some changes. I think the buzzword at the time was agile, wasn't it? We've just got to change how we do things because of what's going on. It sounds like you sounds like those things were good for morale. And did it kind of bring a sense of unity amongst people as well?
Yeah, I think so. And every Monday morning at 11 o'clock, we'd all get together on a Zoom call with all the managers of the clubs. So that enabled, and then we'd encourage them to have a Zoom call with their employees. There's 400 staff. You couldn't all get on a Zoom call. We wouldn't see each other.
Imagine.
But yeah, so we sort of tried to put in some good communication tools. I think the lockdown Olympics was great, but there were a lot of people there were a lot of concerns, and so I think we had to get that tone right between trying to make it fun, but also recognizing that, actually we're all really worried. And I do a monthly, goes out with their pay slips. I do a monthly what we call Dave's Dispatch, which is great fun. So we sort of do a bit of staff news. Yeah, it's kind of bit different. So we kind of we tell some stories about what's going on in the business. Probably a bit like Forge Feed, I suppose. But yeah, anyway, I do a think piece. So that was, or a thought piece of my comments, that's basically trying to live out the values of our business. And so I had to put a lot more effort into that, because I felt I needed to get the tone of that right, that I wasn't pretending that actually this wasn't really serious. I wasn't pretending that actually the business was going to survive. We're going to be fine. We're going to come out of this. We'll all have our jobs. It'll be absolutely fine, because I knew that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I needed it to feel a note of hope and of provide some kind of positivity. So that was really hard, actually, to do
Are there
that.
some of those practices, like talking about doing those calls and things, are there some of those that you will continue? Are there things that you've put in place that you think of, actually, although you hadn't planned them, they've been good and you'll kind of continue?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think you're going to like this, but we use the app a lot. So I think we will continue to use that. I think what it did do, interestingly, was amongst the 400 odd staff that we've got, there was always it's probably about 10% that I don't need a company app on the phone. Well, quite quickly in lockdown, they got the company app on their phone, because they suddenly realised, actually, I'm going to need this now. So it's quite good from that perspective, in that we're coming out of this with that being a way that literally, you're getting to everybody if you use that. And I think we're quite a flat organisation. So there's 400 people. It's quite a flat organisational structure. So I think communication was pretty good. I think we tried to do some training. I think we've probably done some more training online. I think that's the thing that will come out of this, is that some of the practices that we've had in place for years that were fairly paper orientated, just because they'd always been paper orientated, going forward now, that's going to be, would be far more online and far more digital. I think that's one of the things that will come out. But yeah, I think when we're open, people are obviously seeing one another and working in teams. So what we did in lockdown wouldn't really work. What it was there to do was to replace the face-to-face contact that we couldn't have. But now we've got the face-to-face contact. Actually, we don't need to do the Zoom calls, because we get together face-to-face.
So when you kind of, and I know this has been your work life for a very long time, not because you're particularly old or anything, but would you say?
But I have had my jab, so that straight away ages me straight away, the fact that I've had one jab already.
There was big news on our staff at school WhatsApp group today. Big news that the over 45s could now get their jabs. I was kind of thinking, I'm long done.
Yeah, absolutely. You and me both.
So when you look back over your whole career, does this now go down in history as like the worst time?
Yeah, 34 years we've had the business. I mean, there have been certain instances and things that have happened as a one-off that would be, they'd be far worse than what's happened in the past year. But they were only, short incidents, and it was tough for a few weeks. This has been tough for me. I've not been able to take a holiday. Since January, I've had about 4 days off. So it's been really hard work, because actually there's been no one else to do the work. And I've, from a personal perspective, I had to take an 80% salary cut to be part of trying to help the business to survive. And again, thought I was only going to be doing that for a few months, and I've done it for a year, and we'll probably have to do it for the rest of this year as well, which has put all sorts of challenges on us at home as a family, which we'd never really contemplated before. And so it's it's one of those things, but it is, I think it will all go down as the worst year, to be honest.
I think when we last chatted, I actually can't remember if it was just another conversation we had, or whether it was in our Think Differently that we did a year ago. I think you did say that actually, and I think what you're saying there kind of bears it out, that in carrying that huge weight because of the position you hold within the company, that actually it can be quite lonely in management. Is that something that you've continued to feel?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult in a position of leadership. I think it will naturally be lonely, because you have to make the final decision, and I think think I don't want to get into a political conversation, but I think, you know, partly it's been interesting. I think, you know, we are led by an individual, a prime minister whose primary goal is to be popular, it would seem. And I think in leadership, that's one of the worst traits you can have is the need to be popular, because unfortunately you have to make some really difficult decisions. That means you're not going to be popular, the right decisions for the business, but that's not going to make you popular. And I think, you know, when you look at how he approached lockdown in the build up to Christmas, and it would be, I think his phrase was, it would be cruel to cancel Christmas, and then he had to in the end anyway. So you know, that's led for more
Wow,
problems.
I've almost forgotten some of those things. That whole like, it's all going to happen. Oh no, it's not. Yeah.
And it was based, you know, he's trying to base his decisions on popularity. He's based all his decisions on being popular. That's why, you know, some certain places have been locked down that probably don't need to be locked down, and others that should be haven't. So so from my perspective, yeah, it's been lonely, because I've known that I've had to make some horrible decisions. You know, our business model is not suited to these conditions, because you know, we run health clubs and spas in hotels, and obviously so therefore our clients are effectively hotels. Well, they also have been hugely impacted. So we have had, you know, clients that have not had the money to be able to pay us. So, you know, we've got people that can't afford to pay us, and we've got hotels that maybe, and clients that may not be able to open again. So the hotel's closing, so that means that we have to close. So those contracts have gone, which means that we can't employ those people anymore, because there's just is nothing for them to do, because the site's closed. So you know, I've had to make some pretty difficult decisions, but they were the right decisions for the business. But it doesn't make them any easier. I mean, I'm lucky in that I've got a really good, you know, I've got a senior team around me that are really good and really supportive. So, you know, in many respects, it's not lonely, because there's people that I'm talking to. I'm really lucky through the Forge. I've had, you know, a number of people who I know have been praying for me, and that's been hugely beneficial and supportive, and I valued that more than anything. You know, I've got running mates, couple of guys that I've met up with through the Forge, and so you know, in many respects, I've not felt lonely, and actually spent more time at home, and both my daughters and my wife have also been incredibly supportive as well. So it's strange talking about being lonely from a perspective when actually, you know, I'm not. You know, I've got a huge amount of support, but actually, yeah, some of the tough business decisions does feel incredibly lonely. So yeah, that's been tough.
Yeah, I get that. But it's really good to hear that you've got people around you as well that are supportive and walking it with you as well. You kind of alluded there to, you spoke there about government, and I guess, you know, from my perspective, working 2 jobs, one of which, in a sense, I kept going with teaching, because even when schools were closed, we were still teaching key workers kids, and, you know, I'm paid for that. And with church, we've benefited from the furlough scheme. So how has it been for you as a company? I mean, you gave the kind of raincoat analogy there. So has there not been much in the way of funding and grants to kind of help you through?
Well, so there's been a tiny amount of support. So you know, we've had some support in terms of, as we don't have to pay our rates, so that's quite helpful for us as a business. And we've obviously had the furlough scheme, which means that the majority, initially all, but not anymore. Now the majority of our payroll costs have been covered when we've been closed, and there's been the odd grant, but it's fairly fixed. You know, so you can have a fairly small business that's getting the same as ours, which is a pretty big business. So I don't think, you know, and that's my sort of plastic Mac in a tsunami example, really. So to give you some idea, you know, we went into this with no debt and cash in the bank to support and provide our working capital. And we're coming out of it. We've still got a bit of money in the bank account, because we need that to be able to survive. But we've got debts of about 900,000. So you know, that's quite eye-watering for a business of our size. So that gives you some idea. So the cost to this whole pandemic, it's still going. We're back and we're open, but we're not going to be able to make money because of the restrictions that we've got on us. So we can't do a lot of the things that we want to do. I mean, we can technically, you can come and have a spa day, but you just can't use the saunas or steam rooms because they have to stay closed, and you can't have anything to eat or drink. Well, that kind of limits the impact of an enjoyment of a spa day. So we're not really selling spa days. We're doing treatments. People want to come and have a treatment and go home again. But we've got all the costs now being open, and we've got far less support because technically we're open. So the cost of this will go on. But yeah, it's going to be over £1 million that this will have cost us as a business, which is a huge number, and it will take us a number of years.
I was going to ask that. So looking forward, what does that mean? Do you have in your mind that if things pick up and we return to whatever normal is going to be, do you have in mind, like in however many years you'll be back in a good place? Can you think like that?
It's a bit early to tell. But I mean, if we looked at what we did in 2019, which was the year before, obviously we went into lockdown, so it's the year that we were last affected for. When we get back to doing what we're doing in 2019, then it would take us probably about 4 years to get back to just be at the position that we were in, to have been able to have paid down our debts and get back to
again. That's quite a hefty kind of weight, isn't it, to be carrying.
And I think sometimes, people talk about how, I've had a number of people say to me, well, you're really lucky about, that the government have been so generous, and we are. And I've been involved in spas and we, I've talked to people all around the world, and there's various different spa conventions where people are on from abroad. And to be fair, our government has been a lot more supportive of our businesses. So I've talked to some of my colleagues that are running spas in the Middle East, and they're just basically told, get on with it. There's zero money for staff. There's no furlough.
Right.
You just let the staff off, and the staff have got no money. So I don't want to sound ungrateful, but when we going back to 2019, to put this into context, in 2019 my business, through rates and through VAT and through tax, gave the government 900,000 just in that 1 year in 2019. So that's how much we pay into government in 2019.
Right.
And the money we've got
puts it in perspective.
Yeah. If you look at the money we get back from government, to a certain extent, the government really, when they're keeping businesses going through a pandemic like this, what they're really doing is basically effectively giving a loan, because if they help businesses to survive, then those businesses will continue to trade, and just through VAT and through the staff that they employ, get that back, that money back, because to generate that money going.
Yeah. You're frozen slightly. Have I frozen? Oh no, you're back. You're back.
So yeah, I think the government have been really helpful, but I think actually they will get that money back over time for the money they've given to businesses. That doesn't put into perspective. I know there's a huge amount of other costs the government have had, but yeah, there we go.
Oh, it's heavy stuff, Dave. It's heavy stuff. Yeah. Oh, but hurrah, 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 that this is the week, celebrate, that you, I appreciate it. It's not to the extent that it was, but you've opened again, and that must be amazing. Has it been hard work getting everything and everyone to a place of being ready to go again, which was on Monday, 12th, wasn't it?
Well, we've had a bit of practice at this, because this is the third time that we've reopened. So being honest, it feels a lot easier actually this time than it did the last two times, and I think the teams have got ready for it. I think, and it's been great. The feedback from the members. I mean, I'm in this one particular club at the moment, as I mentioned, in Shropshire. So I've been talking to the members and today, and it's been great to hear how pleased they are to be back. And they're excited.
I wondered that. I wondered what the sort of what the feeling is, whether there's a wariness. But I guess if people are wary, they're not coming, are they? People are kind of just pleased to be back doing it.
think everyone's found the third lockdown the hardest.
Yeah.
Probably because I think quite a few people like me didn't see this one coming,
Yeah.
and partly I think because it's been winter, and so there's
Yep.
been a lot less to be able to do,
Yeah.
and you can't get
Yeah.
out as much, and
Mm.
all of that. So I think also this time round there's a lot more people that have had, or there are people that have had the vaccine. There wasn't any the last time we came out of
Mm.
lockdown. So
Mm.
people have now had the vaccine. So I think they feel a bit more confident about
Yeah.
that. The fact they've had the vaccine. I think there's an element of people just saying there's a recognition that coronavirus is here to stay,
Yeah.
and we have to contend what I think is some of the negative media that's out there. So I think there is a lot of positivity. I think people are very keen to just get back to live more normal lives, and coronavirus is going to be part of our lives going forward, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we just have to manage our lives in a way to minimize the risk, but recognize that there is risk. There's risk in everything that we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think I pick up a sense that people are just wanting to crack on with it now, and I think as long as the vaccine program continues at the pace that it has done, then I think it will that confidence will continue to grow, and hopefully people will continue to feel comfortable about coming out. And we've put a lot of effort in at all our clubs to make sure that people do feel safe. So everybody gets their own numbered bottle of sanitizer and a cloth.
Oh, really?
So when you go around the gym, if you want to avoid the risk, it's really simple, because every hard surface you're going to touch, you spray and wipe it first before you touch it, and you've got your own bottle of sanitizer. No one else is going to use your bottle, and all the equipment's spaced out. And so there is a sense that you feel pretty safe, I think, in clubs. And of course, that we've got ventilation that's really good, because actually we want to get rid of the atmosphere in gyms anyway, because people are getting hot and sweaty, and so you want to remove that from it. So actually, in a health club, you've got 100% fresh air intake, which you don't have in shops or offices. So actually, in terms of safety, these are pretty safe places to be.
Yeah. And what about you personally, having kind of carried the weight of this, having done so much of the work, having to be more home-based? How does it actually feel for you this week to kind of be back?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's one of the positives of lockdown is actually getting to spend more time at home has been really good from that perspective. But it's lovely to get back on the road. It's lovely to get out and visit the clubs. I enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy being with the team. I enjoy being with and talking to members. That's part of my job that I really, really enjoy. So it's been great. And actually, to be fair, the last 2 or 3 weeks have been great, because I've been coming up to this site is one of mine, so I come up here once a week, and it's a lovely town. It's a lovely place to be, and we've got a great team here. So I've loved sort of helping them to get the place ready, which is what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. So it feels, for me, it feels good, but I kind of probably will end up from this that I'm probably still going to end up working 1 day a week from home. That's my plan going forward.
Okay. So interesting.
There are many positives that will come out of lockdown for a number of us, but including me, I think.
And I was going to ask that, because I think we can't help but have changed in some ways, and I think lots of us have it's been an opportunity in some ways to kind of just reflect, hasn't it? And I think we've found ourselves reassessing our lives to some degree or other during the year. So you've said that about, like, you're going to have a day working at home. Perhaps what would you say that you've learned personally, kind of aside from what's gone on with work? What would you say that you've personally learned during the year?
So I think a number of things. So one of the things that's come out of it, so Rose is my eldest daughter, so we got into the habit of going for a run together, and that's been brilliant. So we now run once or twice a week. And
how far?
We've got up to 4.5 miles now. So it's not going to be long before she's out. At the moment, I can still outrun her. So
no way! That is so impressive.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased.
That is genuinely impressive. I'm impressed with that. I really am. Because how old is she?
15.
Yeah. Wouldn't it have been funny if you'd said she was like 3?
3, I missed
you
an opportunity
can outrun. Yeah, you can. That is That is amazing. I'm really
Yeah.
impressed with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. So she'll be delighted that you've really focused on that point as well when this comes out. So,
Speaking to her later in the week, I'm doing a podcast with her. I'm a bit nervous because I'm used to asking the questions.
yeah. No, she's done her podcast. That's another thing to come out. So I started my own podcast as well
Yeah.
with two of my best mates. So that's been our
Waggle
lockdown
Dance?
project, the Waggle Dance podcast. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So that's been great fun.
Yeah.
Actually, I've really, really enjoyed that. So I think finding time to do some other stuff like the Waggle Dance podcast has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed that, and I've got a lot out of that personally. We did it for ourselves really, and if there's a few people that listen along, well, great. But actually, the main
That
thing
must
was
have been
to
so
help
lovely
stretch
as
us.
well, to do something that was aside from work and family and just all the other things that are normal in life, just to find something else to be doing at a time like this. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, no, so that's been good. I think I've learned to structure my life a bit better. So I recognize that I needed to put structure into my days when we were in lockdown. And so
Right.
that's
What do you
something
mean? Like making sure you're up and doing and routine during the day?
I needed to get a routine because I was at home all the time. So normally my sort of day sorts itself out. So I'm up really early and I'm on the road from probably 7 at the latest, and then the day tends to, I'm usually going somewhere all around the country, or if not, I'm going into my office in Norwich. So that day sort of but structures it, or a week structures itself. But now actually we've got into a bit more of a routine that I've had to have, like at home, because I've been at home the whole time. And we've found a dog walk that we do as a family, and so we do that once a week. And Sunday night meal times is a time when we're all sat round and we have a meal, which actually has been great, even though we've actually have eaten together a lot more as a family. That's really important to me. I think eating together as a family is so valuable. And
just eating at home every night has been quite revolutionary, hasn't it? For me, it's been like Friday night fire pits, just sitting around a fire and just chatting, and just loved it. Just really loved it. Yeah.
So I think that's good. And I think, to an extent, the financial situation, which I never kind of envisaged or saw coming, has made me recognize the value of allowing others to help out. So we've survived financially because my in-laws have chipped in and helped. And I would never have allowed that, to be honest, beforehand. I'd have had too much pride and had to swallow my pride. But actually, in a funny sort of way, it's something they've really valued, and they've been pleased to be able to do, and it's lifted them to be able to feel like they've really made a contribution and helped us out when, in a practical way, when we really needed it. And I'm hugely grateful to them for that. And it's probably a life lesson for me that I wouldn't have allowed them to have done that before. But actually, it sounds funny, doesn't it? They're giving us money and they're pleased about it, but they genuinely are. And I would have denied them that. So I think there's lots of things that you can learn from this, and just got to try and remember and hold on to those.
I think we have, haven't we? I think it would be easy to just pick up some of the things again that perhaps we've realised that weren't necessarily the best way to do life. I was reading an article earlier about, I think it was entitled Permission to Disconnect. I wonder if this is something that you've kind of come across, in that working from home and running your business, in a sense, there's that, where's the cutoff? And I think lots of people have found this, when does the workday stop? Is it when you move away from the dining room table? And the article was just about it is okay to disconnect. It is okay to say, actually, I'm not available now. You can't contact me now. Is that something that you've kind of had to kind of find your way with at this time?
Yeah, that's something I'm always going to find a bit more of a challenge than ever before, really, simply because we of all of our staff, there are only there's 400 odd staff, but only 4 of us that weren't furloughed. So kind of to not be available when there wasn't somebody alternative was quite difficult. So I think, but I think your point is right, that actually you have to create some time and boundaries when you're working from home. Difficult though that is, and yeah. So for me, it would be walking the dog. It would be going for a run with Rose. I just talked about it. It would actually be getting out of the house and so the family walk is great, because actually I'm not going to have my phone on me at that point. So yeah, I think it is. I think working from home is going to teach us quite a lot about ourselves and what we actually need to do. I love. Previously, I would always go and take my laptop and go and sit in a coffee shop, and just the atmosphere of the coffee shop and the buzz of the coffee shop would help me with my work. So I really miss that a bit, if I'm honest. So I think working from home is going to involve me going into Framlingham to a coffee shop just as part of it. But yeah, I think it's just about finding time and space for doing other activities. And we mentioned it before, but like the Wagonlance podcast was great, because that we had a date when we were going to do that. We had topics we were going to talk about. We had to do a bit of research to make sure that happened. So that forced me to fit that into my schedule, and that was good for me. That was really good for me.
I think that's almost my philosophy of life anyway. Aside from coronavirus, I kind of have this slight sort of motto that mostly nothing happens unless you make it. And I think you've got to be intentional about whatever it is, if it's leisure time, if it's switch off time, if it's doing a new project. These things don't just happen, do they? You've got to make them happen. And I think it is about being in control of your diary and your timings, and deciding where you want to invest your time, isn't it? Making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely, and making sure that as part of that, I would definitely make sure we keep family time allocated better than I did before.
That's great. That's such a positive thing. Really great.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you've talked about is big, heavy stuff. And I know that you're a Christian, and you've talked about some of the relationships you have with folk from church and how much you've appreciated people praying for you. So how would you say that your faith has played out during this time?
Well, I think I've had to recognize that a lot of stuff is outside of my control, and so there's a tendency you've got to hand that over to God and let him to deal with that. I think that's the first thing I'd say. I've not been very good at that, but I didn't have much choice this time in this situation.
So what does that
option.
What does that actually look like? I think as Christians we say that, about handing it over to God. What does that mean? Does that mean choosing not to worry? Does that mean how do you do that? How do you actually give something over to God?
That's exactly it. I think that is exactly it. It's choosing not to worry. It's for me, really early on, it was like, right, I'm just going to focus on the things that I can influence and affect, which is how I manage the business in terms of finances and how I support the staff and what I do around it. Those are things I can influence. I haven't got the answers for them, but I can influence how we talk to it. That I can help to set little things up that might make their challenging situation they're facing a bit easier, whether it be the lockdown Olympics, whether it be something I write or say. Those are things I can influence. So I'm going to focus on them, and I'm going to worry about them, and all the other stuff that's going on. I just recognize that I've got to leave that, and whatever will be.
And is that almost something that you have to keep coming back to? I mean, that sounds really, really good, but I think for me, sometimes I can say that and then find myself really worrying. Or so is it almost like a daily choice? Like, no, I've chosen that I'm going to leave this stuff and give this to God.
Yeah, so I really quickly decided that there was only so much news that I was going to listen to. Actually, that's the one thing I always, for me, prior to the pandemic, I listened to the news quite a bit. I had it on in the car, I quite quickly decided that wasn't helpful, because I listened to the news. Sure, I listened to the briefings that the government were doing. I kept myself abreast of it, of course, but actually, I needed to do other things. So I think partly there was that. It was about controlling the amount of information that kept coming into me, so because otherwise it just would become a bit of a burden. And
I think
I
Leon
was
Evans, who had done a series for us recently, I don't think it was part of that, but I know he said quite early on, don't make the news the first thing you listen to in the morning. Start your day with God, and then at some other point tap into the news. And I thought that was good advice, because it was about prioritizing, as you say, the stuff that's being fed into your mind.
Yeah, and then you've got to understand what the news people that are broadcasting the news, they need to make it dramatic to keep our attention. So, and when you've got something like coronavirus, to be frank, it's dramatic enough, but they still will tend to make it fairly dramatic. And so I think there is that tendency of, you don't need to hear that, I don't need to listen to that. So for me, that was one thing. I think also there was an element about I was really, really busy. So actually I was quite lucky in the because the things that I could influence was so filling my time that actually I didn't have time to almost sit and think about the wider picture and all of that. So I think that was, to a certain extent, that was helpful. And I think, to come back to what we were talking about in terms of what did that do in my faith, it gave me the chance to broaden what I would do. So some of the things that the Forge has done, Fridays with Fenning, the things that you've done, Think Differently Thursday, I would tap into those, and I would listen to those. I like people's stories, and what you've done here is people's stories, and I found the more reflective nature of what Steve spoke about on Friday was really helpful for me. And the online stuff on Sundays. To be honest, this isn't a criticism of it, but to be honest, that just didn't I didn't connect with that in the way that I do with the Forge live on a Sunday. So it's enabled me to go and find other stuff. So I've been listening to podcasts and from church has been online, so I can go to any church
we could go
in the world.
Absolutely
and I have been so I've been spending my time listening to lots of other churches, which has broadened out what I've thought to do, and that's not in any way, shape or form a criticism of the Forge. It's just that was an opportunity, and that was enabled me to do that. And some of the stuff the Forge has done has been great and really worked for me, and other stuff hasn't. So don't stick with that. I'll go and do some other stuff. So that's been really useful. And I miss Sundays. I'm looking forward to when we're able to get back. I enjoyed meeting up with people. I enjoy being part of it. I enjoy, occasionally I'd be involved with hosting, as working for your team, and I enjoy that. So all of those things will be good to come back to when we're able to. But this past year for me has been connecting with other churches and seeing things done slightly differently, and just my running mates, we used to meet once a month. We upped that to once a week. So that was really good. Someone else that I know through the Forge who we had a spell, particularly between lockdowns, when there was still no Forge, and so we connected and spoke for a couple of hours on a particular topic or podcast or whatever, and that was fantastic for me. That was really helpful. So it's just been different. I've just found different ways of connecting and plugging in my faith to what I do, which I think has been good, because there's a tendency, to be honest, to get a bit lazy. So it's all served up on a Sunday morning, and that's my faith input for the week, and crack on with the rest of the week. Whereas I've had to go out and be intentional about okay, so what am I now going to do? What hang on a minute, how am I going to connect with God?
Which I think is really brilliant. And I think in a sense, this time does shine a light on where we're at, and actually if you're relying on relationship with God to be just on a Sunday morning, it's just never going to be enough, is it? And so yeah, we've loved people's stories of how they're growing in their faith and what input they're getting, and how what we're doing or what they're seeing from other churches is really helping them to grow. It's yeah, definite. And I think exactly what you just said about being intentional about your own faith story and your own growth is hugely important, and it's really something that we want to take forward. Yeah, I mean, it's partly, you know, what these small groups we're doing in this next little while are about, you know, just really encouraging people to ensure that they have good disciplines and practices in place to deepen their relationship with God, and that they are responsible for it. We can do what we do with what we put out as a church, but ultimately everyone's responsible for their own growth and their own faith. So yeah, that's interesting what you're saying, really interesting. It will of course be wonderful to be back together, and you've said that you've missed meeting in church. What else, just generally in life, you know, this year has been tricky. What is it that Dave Courtine does at other times that you've missed, that you can't wait to get back to, or even have begun to get back to?
So I love my sports. I love
because you can run faster than your daughter, who's
tennis.
15.
Can run fast. Yeah, can run faster than that. Did you know that? It's amazing, isn't it?
I am literally astounded by it. It's incredible.
I can run,
and she's like really sporty and slender, and oh my goodness.
And
how long do you reckon you've got, Dave?
As well.
How long do you reckon you've got?
Well, with the knee I've got at the moment, probably about 2 more weeks, to be honest. But
right,
but I don't know.
I can remember a stage where I
probably a.
Sorry.
Go on.
I can remember a stage where it wasn't going for runs, but it was just being able to run faster. So whether that was just like running to the end of the garden, I can remember that stage, particularly with Jack, of thinking, oh, I think we're at a bit of a transition period now, but you're going to be faster than me. And I think that was before 15.
I think they probably could run faster than me to the end of the garden.
Right.
So in a sprint, they probably could outrun me. But yeah. But over the 4.5 miles, I'm still back myself. Maybe
how long does it take you? Sorry to be so obsessed with this running thing, but how long does it take you to run that far?
So I would average about 8 minutes 46 seconds a mile.
Okay.
Over that distance. And Rose is probably about 9 minutes 15 seconds, something like that. So half a minute a mile faster than her is what I would say. So yeah, I'm sort of 2.5 minutes ahead of her on
this is impressive. This is going to be my standard topic of conversation with you, just so I can keep up to speed of like where the change is happening. How old are you, Dave?
I'm gonna be honest, actually. When you told me we were doing this and you gave me a bit of a heads up, I didn't think that the conversation about me running with Rose would be quite as prevalent as it has been in the conversation. So
it's literally my favourite bit.
Yeah.
I'm well impressed.
So and to answer your question, I'm 56. So yeah.
You are 56 and you are outrunning your 15-year-old. We'll just say it one more time for everybody to hear.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's so I love my sports.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait to go back and watch live sport in a stadium full of people.
Right.
I'll probably pass a bit on Portman Road in Ipswich, which is my favourite.
Although they've got something new and exciting happening, haven't they? I don't know what it is. A new person's come in to do something. Oh, you're not that excited.
Time will tell.
Okay.
I'm not that excited. No, I'm not that excited. No, I've been an Ipswich fan for too long to get overexcited about potentially somebody coming in with a bit of money. Right. But no, Millie and I love going to Portman Road, and it's a brilliant time that we have together. But they are playing particularly badly at the moment, so I'm not particularly looking forward to rushing back to sit and be frustrated by that in a stadium full of people that are booing and getting fed up with them either. But to go and watch some cricket or to go to watch some live tennis, the atmosphere of live sport is something that I've missed. I've been able to watch it on the telly a bit, but I can't do the fake crowd noise. I can't be doing that. That just irritates me. and to listen to it when no one else is there, it does take away, just does take the edge off of sport when there's not the atmosphere of the crowd and everything else. So that's, for me, that's the thing I can't wait for. That's the thing I'm really looking forward to more than anything.
And to have me over, like, for pizza, that sort of thing.
Of course, would have been the second thing, but I thought you only wanted one.
Great. It is so great to speak to you, and I'm so glad that we've done this on this week, which is a year round from when we not the last spoke, obviously we've spoken in between, but year round from doing this, and I'm just so pleased that things are looking so much better for you than they were this time last year. And I know, you know, this time last year I would have asked you what people could pray for you, and I'm certain that people in church have been doing that, and we will continue to do that. We realise you're not out of the woods yet, but we will continue as a church to pray, I'm sure. When we finished last time, I asked you what your top tips were for beauty, and I think you said stick with your face care, or stick with your moisturising, and it will pay off. So how do you think I'm doing?
Brilliantly. Clearly you've followed it to the letter, which is good to see. You can't beat an important end of day and first thing in the morning routine for skincare. So yeah,
good.
Clearly.
So would you say I'm looking how many years younger than that year ago?
Well, it's got to be at least 5, isn't it?
I feel literally 5 years older. Dave, thank you so much for
I've had to wear glasses. I don't think I wore glasses last time, did I? So that's what's happened to me.
Do you know, I spoke to you one time recently, and when I came off the call, I thought, when did Dave start wearing glasses? But Dave, let's not forget, you can run faster, further, longer, with more stamina than your 15-year-old. That's what we're taking away from this chat, which is brilliant.
Clearly.
Thank you so much for your time. Always lovely to speak to you. Thank you. We'll do it again in a year's time, shall we?
Let's hope so. Let's hope we've got more exciting things to tell.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.